Hi there, welcome to the I Ching Cafe. My name is Belinda Doveston, and it is wonderful that you are here with me for our first weekly I Ching forecast for February, for the week commencing the 2nd of February 2026. Last week we had Hexagram 48, the well. Okay, we had some problem with the water not being used, this beautiful structure that we've created, the methodology that we've put in place or that we're using or that we're accessing, our network, our social structure. And there was something about the well this week we were being drawn into this past week in focusing on the well and where the resources are not being used the way that they could. Okay, how we can tap into the water and recognize that if no one's using this water, if you are not using the gifts and skills and resources you have, you can't get the nourishment from that. And that there's a couple of fish floating in the bottom there, but no one really wants to do anything with the water. Recognizing where perhaps there are aspects of what we're doing, of what we're building, of our skills and resources where we just are not using the talents we have, or perhaps in our teams, not working with the talents we have, or the network, not leveraging the network in the way that we could, and recognizing where we need to do some work on the well to improve how the well functions. Plus that little returnee Hexagram 39 obstruction, where we started the month in January with that energy for the whole monthly, and wrapping up January with this little tail end of obstruction, bringing in a little bit of a closure perhaps, or a repeat or a comeback on the obstruction we had earlier in the month, maybe a new issue, bringing us back to this idea of learning how to deal with the obstacle in the road, the injury, the halting, okay, the stoppage, learning how to deal creatively with the things that are in front of us that stop us going at the pace we want to go. So how did your week pan out between the well and obstruction? Where did that pan out? I had an interesting insight around a part of my team where resources and skills within the team weren't being used or weren't being used in the right way, and just recognizing and coming to terms with change being required. So, all good. If there was something that came up for you last week, please do share a comment. Okay, let's get into this week's energy as we kickstart February. If you have not yet done so, go and check out the monthly overview for February, really giving us a heads up around this abysmal energy, the water pumping, right, and the need for controls. So go and check that out if you'd like to. This week, our first hexagram that we are working through is hexagram 6, conflict. Oh, how does this happen? Okay, so we've started up this energy of abysmal, all right, and the pumping of the water, and we've got a whole lot of conflict to deal with this week. Because we have 3 changing lines, so there's lots of different facets to conflict that we are going to have to deal with, confront, and work through. Perhaps conflict with other people, perhaps internal conflict. All right, when we have conflict, we have 2 parties, all right, maybe yourself and another, and maybe you are the impartial party working through a conflict with 2 people in your family, or 2 people or 2 entities in your workplace, and the bashing of the minds. Both parties want to win. Now, a negotiation is never won when both parties want to win entirely at the expense of the other. And so we deal with, when we think of this hexagram, we deal with overcoming the need to win at all costs and finding a common agreed area that we can move forward on. Now, obviously it's ideal that we pay attention to the escalation of rhetoric in our team and our families. Perhaps we can say this is a global issue as well. We stay tuned to the rising issues and we nip them in the bud before they become an all-out conflict situation. Right? We don't leave them. We sit the parties down. We deal with it, right? We resolve it. Perhaps it's yourself with another. Okay, you find a way to resolve the situation. Now, we can do that. That'd be great if we could preempt and we could tune in. And maybe this is giving us a foreshadowing this week where we can start to pay attention to where are these areas where conflict might get out of hand. If we don't deal with this, it can escalate and become a major issue, right? So we think about how can we do that. But we also then think about when we get in a situation of conflict, how do we deal with that? And our main objective when this hexagram comes up is to de-escalate. Okay, that is the number one thing. If you could just take a slogan for the week: de-escalate, de-escalate, de-escalate. Whether you're in the traffic and you want to just shout and scream at someone who's cut in front of you, or you've got a personal issue with a loved one, or you've got an issue happening at work, don't just swallow your words and self-silence. Find positive ways of negotiating and dealing with the conflict and getting it out. I've spoken with this hexagram before that a Venn diagram is a great way of thinking about this situation. One circle is you and your needs, and the other circle is the other party's needs. And we can't get a solution when we are separate, right? I want to win at the expense of the other person. We only win, truly win, when the two overlap and we find a common ground. We find a place where we have shared values, shared understanding, a shared truth. And when those things overlap and we focus on that overlap, and that becomes our central binding force, we can resolve the conflict. When we want to push the circles apart, we are escalating conflict. When we want to push the circles closer together, we are de-escalating. The trick is no one must win. The shared values and shared opportunity of both parties is what must win. Okay. And it's very important because we sometimes just really want to fight. We want to fight. And then you've got to think about in your consciousness, why do you want to fight the situation out as opposed to finding a peaceful resolution? Okay. What is it in your nature? What is in my nature that wants to do that? Instead of saying, you know what? I might feel like I'm right, but that's not the point. The point is find the common ground where we do agree on something. And then you build on that. That becomes your center point, and you build on that. And particularly if the conflict that you experience this week is with two colleagues, perhaps two employees, two members of your family, you now have a tool to say, you know what, when this pops up, when conflict comes up, you know what to do. De-escalate. Find the common area. Bring the two circles together. Find that thing that both people agree on and take it from there. Now, 3 changing lines. Oh my goodness. This is intense. All right. In changing line, position 3. In a situation, there's conflict, and in a way, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. Okay. It's a situation where you can't potentially solve it. You've got to let it play out, and you've just got to keep your head down. Okay, so somehow in this situation, one of the conflict items is also about recognizing where the timing is not right, because timing is everything, where the situation or the issues are just bigger than what you can handle or are beyond you or not yours. And there's a process of, it's a challenge, but you've got to just put your head down, put your head into the wind, and just soldier on. Okay. It's in a way like going undercover, going a little bit undercover and just getting on with the work, not trying to get your own personal needs met. Your personal needs must always be met. But in this particular situation of conflict, of not trying to be individualistic about it, just hunkering down and getting the job done. This is not about you. Okay. So this changing line is depersonalize the situation. Right? Keep your head down and serve the moment. Bring to the situation what the situation needs without your own needs being put on the top of it. Okay. You might find there's a whole lot of conflicting stuff happening around you that's not about you, and you've got to step back from it and you've got to support it because it's got to play out however it needs to play out. Okay. Just nod your head, keep your head down, and do the work. Okay. In position 5, this line is all about pleading your case. So you can visualize it as you standing before a judge or an arbiter, right, or a mediator, and this is your opportunity to speak up, okay, to have your case heard and put before the judge, okay. It might be that in your situation this week, you are the arbiter, the mediator, the judge, and the two conflicting parties need to have a moment to be heard and to speak their truth, okay. So create the space that it's both ways. Where is there a conflict situation around you where you need to be the impartial judge to hear the case, give everyone a chance to speak, and create unity and harmony and the de-escalation as a result of that. And where might you be in a situation where there's a conflict and you need to get your facts down? You need to speak about what it is that's going on. Okay. That is also the energy, the opportunity this week. So if you are facing and have been dealing with an issue of conflict where you're needing to put forward your case, this energy is a helpful energy to do it this week. Okay, that might be the opportunity we have. Okay, and in line 6, right at the top, this line is a doubling down, an intensification of the warning of not trying to win. We might win, but the winning ultimately in the long term will be its exact opposite, the loss. There's something around this where if we force our agenda, we force our idea, we force a way forward, we face the opportunity down the line. We might win now, but we are going to pay the price later. Okay. So what looks like a quick victory, a quick fix, right? An immediate solving of the problem. You might go, yes, won that argument, but ultimately it's not going to help you. And perhaps same situation. You might be in a situation where someone's wanting to gun for a win, and your good sage advice, because the I Ching is whispering in your ear, is it might look like a victory, but is it really? Is it the long-term picture that's going to add value? Or is it just a quick fix, a plaster, a band-aid over the issue that is bleeding out? Okay, so that is a way we can work with this week. Interesting energy, 3 changing lines. We're going to deal with these things one after the other in quick succession. You might find these 3 changing lines relate to 3 separate issues, 3 separate conflicts, or progression on the same one. See how it goes. Be open to how it comes, but know that this hexagram comes to bring you the opportunity and the energy to resolve something that needed to be resolved anyway. And this is the week to do it. Okay. This flows to hexagram 32, duration. Right. The second relating flow of change, the second hexagram, because we had those 3 changing lines. This is the marathon. This is the ability to have stamina to go the long distance and to focus on the longer vision that you have in mind, the bigger picture. That we can't race like the hare, okay? We have to be the tortoise. And that classic story of a horse and a camel racing, where they had a race who could get across the desert the fastest. And they both set off, and of course the horse ran, and won the race. And then on the finish line fell over and died. Okay. The camel got there later, had some water, turned around and ran all the way back. Okay. That is the example that I want to think about when we think about this hexagram. It's not about the race to the finish line, right? Remember, changing line 6 in a way is giving us a foretasting of this 32 duration. It's not about the quick fix. It's not about the horse. It's about the camel. And if you're going to cross the desert, you're going to need a lot of camels. So we work with this idea that the duration is important, the endurance is important, getting to the end place is important. And perhaps when we think about conflict, when we go through these conflicting situations this week, perhaps if you are the mediator, put in the back of your mind, what is the long-term goal? What is the bigger picture? How do we sustain whatever we agree, whatever's the outcome or the mediated Venn diagram overlap, whatever it is we mediate, is this sustainable in the long term? And what is the long-term picture we are working towards? All right. And that is a way perhaps of drawing us through the conflict and giving us a path to victory as the second hexagram. Lovely energy to work with this week because we all love conflict, and we will do it. We'll find a way to be peaceful, to be masterly in holding the space for ourselves and others. And perhaps if we deal with internal conflict using the same principles, what's the long-term vision? What are the issues? What do we need to address? Nip it in the bud now. Don't leave it. What do we need to overcome internally to move forward? So, happy crossing the desert with your camels. I will connect with you very soon for our next weekly overview. In the meantime, if this was valuable to you, hit a thumbs up and a like, and hit that subscribe button or the follow button if you'd like to get regular updates And of course, I'll see you very soon for our next weekly forecast. Until then, take care.